Alright, so Happy Death Day was kind of a revelation back in 2016. It was Groundhog Day as a slasher movie, which is a fantastic fucking idea that somehow no one had done before. And they really hit it out of the park, and Blumhouse got behind it and really pushed it, and audiences responded, and holy shit, a great, fresh, new horror movie actually broke through theatrically and connected with audiences. Do you believe in miracles? Now, the secret, of course, was that much like Groundhog Day itself, there was in fact an actual movie with real depth and character smuggled in underneath the obviously fun spectacle of watching an engaging, but not necessarily all that likable character die multiple slapstick deaths and eventually also attain valuable life skills and enlightenment through cleverly directed repetition of events gags. Making the main character Tree Gelman not typically a virtuous slasher movie final girl, but instead initially the kind of self-involved, casually unkind mean girl type that horror films typically encourage audiences to root for the painful demise of was a great inversion of the trope, and star Jessica Roth was a genuine revelation of a talent with killer comic timing and real dramatic chops when it came in for the pathos and demonstrating her character's actual growth. Now, at the time, I honestly didn't really appreciate it nearly as much as I should have, but my eventual takeaway wound up being, holy shit, they did everything they possibly could with that premise on their terms and threw down the gauntlet in terms of, hey, we're here on the horror scene, show some respect, we deserve it. Immediately followed by, for the love of God, please don't do a sequel. This is a perfect self-contained minor delight as it is, don't break it. With the addendum that if you do have to do a sequel, don't do something stupid like try and explain how the mechanics of the Groundhog Day time loop gimmick works, because that's always just a terrible idea. The original works fine, operating under a vague suggestion that the universe is just trying to teach her something, and just please don't do it. Although, sidebar, I know I'm not the first person to suggest this, but I agree the best sequel no one's ever done to anything is if they did Groundhog Day 2, but when you went to the theater, it's just Groundhog Day 1. Like, they just show the first movie. Because that'd be fucking hilarious as a prank, first of all, but also, who's gonna complain? You get to watch Groundhog Day, and Groundhog Day's a great movie. Anyway, so Happy Death Day to You does not take my advice since, you know, it exists, but surprisingly, it seems to arrive in the same place of relative agreement vis-a-vis the fact that you can't make this premise work as the foundation of a high-concept horror franchise. So instead, it jumps the fence within the first 10 minutes and openly declares its intent to depart from being a slasher movie, a direct Groundhog Day riff, or even part of the horror genre period, instead arriving at a conclusion that's almost shockingly brave in its simple honesty. If the only context where keeping this premise going might make sense is to make a sci-fi comedy a la the Bill and Ted movies or Ghostbusters, but with the characters from the first one, why not just do that? So thusly, after a brief fake-out where it appears Happy Death Day to You might merely be repeating the time loop gimmick from the perspective of a different character, followed by a double fake-out where it's revealed that this new character is a science student partly responsible for inventing a quantum MacGuffin that turns out to be responsible for the previously unexplained time loop in the original, and a triple fake-out where it appears original heroine Tree might have been inadvertently zapped back into the loop from the first one all over again, including the inspired stakes of the looper in question retaining injury damage during each reset, meaning they only get a certain number of shots to fix this. The film throws a curveball square at the audience head and opts to spin off in a bonkers new direction. Through a contrivance of plot, and this is where the sort of spoilers would kick in. It's revealed that Tree has not simply been blown back into her previous time loop, but a time loop in an alternate universe from her own, meaning that not only are the details of the day she'd previously committed to memory in order to break the loop no longer the same, her relationship to the various characters is completely different, up to and including who's a friend, who's a foe, and even who the masked killer turns out to be. Complicating matters further, while some details of this reality are not to her liking, she discovers at least one major difference in her life that leads her to initially contemplate only fixing the broken space-time continuum just enough so that she can stay here, which turns the film further into not simply a sci-fi comedy with a smattering of amusing, almost gory death scenes for resetting the loop each day, but also a surprisingly poignant millennial rumination on fate, choice, and loss. Oh, and also there's still someone wearing the baby mask and stabbing people, since we have to at least pay cursory respect to the idea that this is technically the sequel to a slasher movie. Ultimately, I can't really say it holds up as well as the original, particularly since like Back to the Future 2, which of course it references openly and incessantly, it relies a little too heavily on familiarity with the original to function at all, and feels less like a follow-up that needed to happen than a name-brand demo showcasing returning director Christopher Landon's readiness to handle the moving parts of a bigger budget feature outside the horror genre. But speaking as a fan of the original who'd been approaching the idea of a sequel with a real trepidation, I found their hell, why do we even need to try being a horror movie still? Solution to be refreshingly honest and had real fun time in the moment with what they put together instead. 3 stars, but let's not press our luck with a part 3, okay?